If you were born between 1976 and 1985, your brain is running two completely different operating systems at the same time, and the crash between them is why you feel exhausted in a way you cannot explain to anyone born before or after you. This isn't burnout, this isn't stress, this isn't the normal fatigue of a busy life. This is something deeper, something structural, something psychologists are only beginning to name. And once you understand what's actually happening inside your mind, you'll never look at your own exhaustion the same way again. You'll stop calling it weakness. You'll stop wondering if something is wrong with you, because nothing is wrong with you. Something was done to you, and it happened during the most formative years of your entire life. Psychologists call it dual environment cognitive load, and once you understand it, you'll see why you feel simultaneously more capable than everyone around you and more quietly drained than you've ever admitted out loud. Mwasi, you are a Xennial, born in the narrow window between 1976 and 1985. Not Gen X, not millennial, a micro-generation that grew up analog and entered adulthood digital. And that transition didn't just change your habits. It rewired your brain in a way that has never happened to any generation before you and will never happen again. Here's what makes you different from everyone else in the room. You feel a reflex of anxiety when someone says they'll just text you directions. Sure, you own a physical notebook even though your phone has 17 note-taking apps. You show up 5 minutes early to everything because you grew up in a world where being late had no warning system and no way to explain yourself until it was already too late. You rehearse conversations before making phone calls. You still buy physical copies of books you love because somewhere deep in your nervous system, you don't entirely trust that the cloud will be there forever. When you meticulously organize your digital files into folders because you remember when finding something meant physically searching through an actual drawer. You remember the specific weight of boredom, long, slow afternoons with nothing but your own thoughts and a limited number of television channels. You know how to wait. You know how to be alone with yourself without reaching for a screen. You know how to sit with discomfort until it passes on its own. And that skill feels increasingly like a superpower in a world that has forgotten what silence sounds like. But here's where it gets even worse. That same brain that knows how to wait, how to navigate without GPS, how to find information without a search engine, is now being asked to perform in a world that has no patience for any of those things. Your analog instincts keep pulling you backward. Your digital demands keep pushing you forward. And you are the rope in that tug of war every single day without a break. Research on brain development shows that the environment you occupy between the ages of 12 and 22 permanently wires your expectations of how the world should work. For you, that window was split directly down the middle. The first half was pre-digital, libraries, landlines, showing up or being absent, plans that couldn't be canceled by a text message. The second half was the internet arriving and promising to solve everything. Two completely different realities, both permanently encoded, both running simultaneously. That is not a small thing. That is the neurological equivalent of growing up speaking two native languages that have contradictory grammars, and translation between them never stops. But here's the part nobody wants to admit. The exhaustion you feel isn't coming from working too hard. It's coming from something far more specific and far more invisible. Here's the painful truth. You are not using technology. Technology is using you. And you are one of the only generations alive who is fully conscious of the difference because you remember the before. You remember when a computer was a destination, you sat down, you completed a task, you stood up and walked away. You remember when the internet was a tool and not a landscape you were expected to live inside permanently. Younger people feel no weight from this because they have no baseline for what was lost. Older generations can simply opt out and feel no particular guilt about it. But you can't opt out. The world was rebuilt around digital infrastructure during your prime working years. You built the systems, you managed the teams, you raised the children who have never known anything else. You troubleshoot your parents' devices and your children's apps, and then spend the weekend in the woods without a signal, trying to remember who you were before all of this. That is translation work. And translation is the most exhausting kind of labor because it is invisible and it is never finished. Here's the truth you have been avoiding. The reason you feel older than your age isn't accumulation of years. It's accumulation of worlds. What you have lived two genuinely distinct versions of human existence within a single lifetime. Pre-digital childhood taught you that your outcomes depended entirely on your own actions, your memory, your follow-through, your physical presence in the right place at the right time. No one was going to send you a reminder notification. No one was going to tag you in something to keep you informed. You were the primary agent of your own information. When then digital adulthood arrived and completely inverted that logic. Suddenly information was everywhere, and attention became the scarcity. Connections were instant, and depth became the casualty. Your brain had already been wired for one set of rules. It spent the next 2 decades trying to overlay a completely different set on top. That overlay never fully integrated. It sits like a second skin over the first. And the friction between them is what you feel as that unnamed exhaustion. That sense of having lived too much. That feeling of being somehow displaced in time, even when everything around you appears to be going fine. If that hit you somewhere quiet, good. It means you needed to hear it named out loud. Because most people in your position have been calling this anxiety or pessimism or being too sensitive. It is none of those things. It is the psychological signature of someone who survived a phase transition in human history and retained the memory of both sides. And while that is not a disorder, that is a form of rare intelligence. If you want to break this cycle of quiet depletion, start with this. Stop trying to be fully fluent in both worlds simultaneously. That pressure is self-imposed and it is destroying you slowly. Your analog instincts are not weaknesses to overcome. They are not signs that you are failing to keep up. They are calibration tools that most people around you have lost entirely and would pay anything to recover. In the patience you developed in long, boring afternoons, the ability to sit with a problem without immediately searching for an answer, the trust in physical objects and tactile experience, the comfort with silence and slowness, and the absence of constant feedback. These are not nostalgia. They are cognitive advantages in an era of constant distraction and shrinking attention spans. Use them deliberately. Schedule analog time the same way you schedule meetings. Protect your attention with the same ferocity you once protected your home phone number from unwanted callers. Give yourself permission to be slow. Give yourself permission to be unreachable. Give yourself permission to stop translating and simply exist in whichever world feels more like home on any given day. Because here is what no one tells Xennials. You are not behind. You are not failing to adapt. You are not too old and not too young. Yes, you are carrying something genuinely heavy and doing it without complaint and without anyone fully understanding the weight of what you hold. You are the bridge between 2 versions of humanity. Bridges bear weight. That is exactly what they were built for. And you are still standing. If this finally gave language to something you have quietly felt for years without ever truly being able to name it, please subscribe. I make videos like this every week exploring the hidden psychology behind how we actually think, feel, and survive. You are not alone in this, and you are exactly where you need to be.